Just off London's bustling Oxford Street is Portland Place. Down this quiet road, you'll find many embassies, the BBC headquarters, and the Royal Institute of British Architects. In 1875, Qing Dynasty Empress Dowager Cixi bought an office building here. Since then, this place has been home to China's embassy. On June 5th, 2002, a group of people appeared across the street.
Basically, we've got a 24-hour vigil here that's been going on for 14 years outside the Chinese embassy.
It's about organ harvesting in China.
People being killed for their organs because they meditate. Both governments and media are deliberately ignoring it. Please sign our petition.
I think when more people realize, we all stand up, speak out, and definitely help, definitely help.
Since then, day and night, they've never left.
Have you heard of Falun Gong?
Yeah, what about this? You've made a strong message here for a long time, people know, right? There's a cartoon, this guy looks like a drunk. It makes it look like you're fighting against hooligans. These guys aren't hooligans, right? They're not drunk. Yeah. That is frightening professionalism.
Merry Christmas.
Why are they there, day and night? Facing the powerful Chinese communist regime, what kind of impact do their actions have? Behind their quiet demeanors, what kind of people are they?
Hello, Yudong.
Hey, Fuhua. Thank you. I saw your text message. Can you cover the shift on Thursday?
Gao Yudong is the coordinator of the vigil. She is in charge of arranging shifts to cover the 24/7 embassy schedule.
The regime persecutes Falun Gong day and night.
Good evening, please.
So shouldn't we also keep up our 24-hour vigil?
Because most people work or go to school, scheduling is a real challenge. If no one is available, Yudong would come to the embassy to cover. It has been like this for 15 years.
This is a picture of Yang Yang and me on vacation in the Caribbean. That was on a small island.
Yudong's son, Yang Yang, or Ben Chun as he is called, began attending the vigil with his mom when he was 11 years old. He spent many nights in a tent on the sidewalk.
This was either 2012 or 11, a dance from Shen Yun's performance. Here is Yang Yang, in the middle.
8 years ago, Yang Yang joined Shen Yun, the top Chinese classical dance company in New York, and is a dancer in the world tours. Every May, he comes back to London to visit his parents.
One big piece.
When he's on tour, he eats all kinds of food. But he always says, "Mom, your beef stew is still the best." Yang, Ben, how are you? How was the trip?
I haven't shaved today. Haven't shaved. This is a plate I bought from Egypt. Dead Sea Mud Facial Cleanser, This is real Dead Sea mud. We went for a swim and smeared the mud all over our faces. Yeah, pour it all in.
Yes, this.
Oh, wow. Oh, you can't buy this in a restaurant.
I was like...
Hey, you're wearing the hoodie? I bought it for Dad. You know, but it actually suits you.
It's too small for Dad, and he thinks color is a bit.
Yeah, it looks good on you, and the color suits you.
So every year I come back home, and every year I have to go back to the Chinese embassy at least once. And it's just being there, like all the memories come back to me.
Hey Lila, good to see you. So this is really cool. This wasn't here last year. These solar panels. So when it's nighttime, it turns on by itself.
It's very bright.
Waterproof flyers. This is the same storage room. I remember when we first started, I couldn't see the top. I had to like jump up here.
14 years ago, so I was 11.
The first few weeks when we started, there were up to 3 tents here. There's one right here, one here.
Sometimes really cold, but then it felt very warm inside, you know, like everyone was a family.
So this is like our recreational area, I guess. When we're bored, we just come back here to play. My mom would go to the KFC 3 blocks down and get a huge family bucket. It felt like every meal was a picnic and every night was a camping trip.
On many days I would wake up at 7 in the tent, and then I would put on my school uniform, like a very proper looking suit, like the whole thing with a tie, and then I'll just get out of the tent and then brush my teeth at McDonald's, and then take the London Underground for about half an hour, and then take the bus for another 20 minutes, and then go to school. Like my best friend at the time, I would always go to his house and play. And then sometimes he would ask me, oh Ben, when can I go around to your place to play? And I was like, oh, you don't want to go to my place. It's like, it's nothing there, not much there to play.
Royal Institute of British Architects. This is where we use the loo. And the reception guys are really friendly. Now sometimes they have a big event here, like a wedding or something, and then they bring out the leftover sandwiches for us here.
When I was in secondary school, they used to ask me, "Wait, Ben, your grades are so good. Is it because every day at home, when you go home, your parents whip you and make you do schoolwork?"
I used to do my homework here too, like, because there's a light here. And when you're really cold, you can sit here and it warms you up. The traffic lights are right there, so everybody has to stop here to read our posters. Yeah, usually you don't even have to say anything. They just read the message and it's very clear inside it. He's signing the petition form. I just said, "Sir, would you like to sign our petition to stop the torture in China?" Actually, over the years, I think we've collected, I don't know, a huge number of petitions.
And then actually I remember I was there on the 99th day. But then the next morning we woke up, we had to change the number to 100. And that was a 3-digit number. So we had to fit in one more slot. And then I asked my mom, I said, "Mom, how long do we have to be here for?" And I remember her answer very clearly. She said, "Until the persecution ends, whenever that day is." Being in that environment, like outside the Chinese embassy, it really, it really tempered my personality to be able to withstand a lot of hardships, I guess. And then when I sit there and sit down to meditate and do the exercises just by myself, I feel really, really peaceful. And it just reminds me of everything that we're doing and why we're doing it.
Against the multi-billion-dollar China-Pakistan economic corridor outside the Chinese embassy in London.
Some of them were students in 1989, some of them teachers.
A large number of native Balochis protested outside Chinese embassy in London.
Many kinds of protests take place across the street from the Chinese embassy. The protesters come and go. Year after year, many people have gotten to know the Falun Gong practitioners who have never left.
Just now we were collecting signatures to stop forced organ harvesting in China. I met a few Chinese students. They want to know about the Tiananmen massacre in Falun Gong. They signed the petition. Whenever there are protests, the embassy asks armed diplomatic police to come. But the embassy never lets them use the washroom inside. So the police often come over to this side of the street. When they are here, they chat with us and look at our display boards. We usually sit facing the embassy's front door. Today many people came because of the event, so we moved to this side. Now they have finished, so I'm putting this back. There was a famous reporter who also signed the petition. I think he's from Hong Kong. He asked a few questions. He said, the UK has business ties with China. Will the UK government actually take action? I told him, whatever decision the government makes is not our concern. But each one of us has the opportunity to express ourselves regarding this matter.
My family is persecuted in China, and I know if they were to do the same thing in China as I'm doing now, they would face very harsh brutality. Although I have the courage to stand here, when I close my eyes, if I hear Chinese people walking past me, to be honest, I'm scared for a moment. They don't really know what Falun Gong is. They have formed a prejudice and don't treat Falun Gong practitioners as equal Chinese with respect. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I'm afraid that someone might hit me. Of course, it's ridiculous.
In 2010, Amy Yu, then 23 years old, came to the UK. She studied fashion design at Anglia Ruskin University in Cambridge.
Barbecue seed for two. In the university, I just want to focus on learning and then find a good job so that I can take care of my parents when they are released. Can we take the order now? What? Can we take order now? Barbecue seed for two. It seems like nobody's in good mood today. Hello.
In order to support herself, Amy has several jobs after school. Life is not easy for her.
In a supermarket, I tried to shelve over 1,000 pounds of merchandise. I pulled the shipment into the store myself. The shipment was as tall as the door. I unwrapped it, took out the things, and then pulled them on the shelves, little by little. By the end of the day, my hands hurt so much that I couldn't even fall asleep. I was fine with that, but I was worried that it would affect my ability to use my hands for my work in the future. My dad painted this for me. It's a copy of a famous painting called Music Lesson. Dad would paint for my mom and me. Sometimes he taught me to draw. We often listened to classical music. He'd entertain me before meals by pretending to be a conductor and waving a chopstick. Dad's health wasn't very good. He couldn't help Mom with housework. This caused many conflicts and quarrels. But after they started practicing Falun Gong, I could feel that the family environment had really changed. Dad became more peaceful and amiable. He stopped arguing with Mom. As a kid, I was very happy. As I recall, Dad became quite healthy after that. His colleagues and relatives witnessed his changes. and were all very surprised. They thought it's incredible. How could a Qigong practice improve his health so much?
It was hard for young Amy to understand why Falun Gong, which had brought her family so much happiness and peace, became the enemy of the regime overnight. Amy was 12 when the persecution began in 1999. Since then, she has lived in constant fear. In 2001, Amy's father, Yu Zonghai, hung a banner on a building that said Falun Gong is good. For this, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Her mother, Wang Meihong, was sentenced to 11 years in prison for telling people about the persecution. In 2004, to escape police harassment, Amy transferred to a school far from her hometown. She went back twice a year to visit her parents in prison.
My dad wore a card indicating he was under tight control. It's always like this. I arrived around 9 a.m. and then waited until 11. The prison guard shouted, "Who's Yu Zonghai's family?" Then he said, "Don't you know your father still hasn't given up Falun Gong? You can see him." It wasn't easy to visit Dad. I had to travel nearly 20 hours by train. Sometimes there were only standing tickets, so I had to sit between carriages or in the aisle. It was so cold. When I finally got there, I was told I couldn't see my dad. So I went to the building next door and knocked on every door in the building, telling whoever opened the door, "I'm a prisoner's daughter. I want to see my dad." I told them that I had traveled very far. Sometimes I met people who were willing to help me. I was 16 when Mom was arrested. Since then, the total time I spent with my parents, including the time I only saw them through the glass barrier, didn't even exceed 14 hours. For me, as long as I can visit and see them standing there unharmed, I have peace of mind.
This is talking about the persecution of Falun Gong in China.
Thank you very much.
It is very difficult for people who don't have any political knowledge of China to understand why Falun Gong is being persecuted. For many Chinese, the only source of information is their government's propaganda, which demonizes this peaceful movement. However, right across the street from the embassy, the small booth that tells the truth about Falun Gong has been safeguarded for 15 years. Over 100 people have participated in this vigil. They are from all walks of life. Among them are those who have been persecuted in China for their belief.
I wake up at 4 a.m. and start walking around 4:30. It's about an hour walk. The weather is coldest between 5 and 7. Sometimes there is frost or snow. I try my best to arrive around that time. Sometimes I arrive a bit earlier, so the other person can go home to rest. This suffering is nothing compared to the persecution in prison. That is something totally different.
Li Yong comes from northeast China. She was thrown into Masanja labor camp for practicing Falun Gong.
I was force-fed twice a day. They held me down and force-fed me, but the tube wouldn't go into this nostril because it was so swollen. So they inserted it into the other nostril. They wouldn't take it out. Then they asked, "Do you still practice Falun Gong?" Yes, I told them. "Okay, then the tube stays there," they said. They pushed the tube into my stomach. It was horrible. I dared not breathe, not even exhale. I dared not move at all. If I moved, the tube would vibrate and cause such stomach pain. That feeling was, for an ordinary person, it was worse than death.
In 2001, the police informed Li Yong's family that they should take her home. The torture had left her unconscious. They never expected that her cultivation practice would restore her health. Now, sitting across from the Chinese embassy, she tells people the truth about the persecution.
In Masanja labor camp, when we were eating, I saw some practitioners limp. That indicated they'd been beaten. We were not allowed to talk. When we saw them, we gestured like this to encourage each other to persevere. I'm happy to be here because it's an opportunity to speak out for fellow practitioners who are being persecuted.
In order to get here, I have to drive to a train station, I have to get a train, I have to get a tube, and then I walk here.
So that everybody in the world sees our ad.
Or if we had the Accenture cloud solution for consumer goods.
Because I'm an actress and so I'm freelance and also being a mother, my time and my schedule is sort of all over the place all the time. So this is my little boy. This was taken actually when he was at playgroup, so it was a couple of years ago now. Often there is a bit of a struggle and balance between these things. I think it's so significant to be opposite the Chinese embassy, to be there as a visual statement. It's about organ harvesting in China. Yes, we've been there since 2002. It means that people really have this visual reference of us saying, you can't eradicate Falun Gong, we're always going to be here. And the thing that needs to be eradicated is the persecution, and it's really making a bold statement.
Hi, miss. I'm here. How are you today? Must be very cold.
Yeah, it's cold, but it was good.
You buy the tent.
My name is Zhu Baosheng. I work in London's local government. I've participated in the vigil for around 13 or 14 years now. Frankly speaking, it's easy to do for just a few days, but as for continuing for so many years, it really isn't easy. At night, not that many people pass by, and the embassy staff have already left. I sometimes wonder, who even knows we're here? But there's something that changed me. It was sometime in 2008 or 2009. One day around midnight, I was driving home while listening to the radio. And one of the hosts asked, "Do you know which building is the most beautiful in London?" And the other host was not sure. The first host said, "Let me tell you, it's the Chinese embassy, the one with the Falun Gong vigil across the street." I was so surprised to hear that. At midnight, a mainstream radio show was talking about Falun Gong and our peaceful vigil. I wasn't expecting that at all. Then the host continued. In this world, there are many petitions and protests every day, but there's one protest that is both enduring and peaceful. It is the most powerful. He used those exact words, most powerful. It's so hard to describe how I felt at that time. I felt that our fellow practitioners have suffered severely. We are here calling for justice and conscience. Everything we are doing here is worthwhile.
On June 5th, 2002, when London Falun Gong practitioners first decided to start a continuous 24-hour vigil across from the Chinese embassy, they probably didn't realize that the vigil would last for more than 5,000 days. Even as we speak, it continues. The world is changing. Life goes on. People's hearts and minds are also quietly transforming.
Every time I would go to work early or come back late, they will always be there. And I think I got just curious, you know, and yeah, I just wanted to know what it was about and what deserves so much perseverance, you know. It must be something very strong, you know, something very important. So I decided to ask them why they are doing this and what was their story. I first met the protesters. They told me about their ongoing struggle, and when I decided to do the documentary, I think that would have been there 10 years of protesting, and you know, and I thought that was such a symbolic milestone. To keep this symbolism, I thought I would cover the protest for 24 consecutive hours, and then every hour I would take photographs. I named the series 87,660. 87,616 is the number of hours in 10 years.
Little Gao. I still call her Little Gao. We know each other fairly well. How? When I came to London and began teaching at the college, I was just 2 blocks from her home. So when we went to the embassy or other activities, we traveled together in my car. Her son Yang, Ben, his achievements are extremely impressive. For his GCSE exams for 12 subjects, he got A+ for 11 subjects. And for one subject, it was an A* or something. That kid is very funny. He learns everything so quickly. Computers, anything, so fast. Music, anything.
Lawyer, we prepared 2 cards to give to Reba. One is for the reception team, and the other is for the building manager. We are all going to sign them and give the cards to them before Christmas to express thanks for their support and help.
Little Gao is really able to bear hardship. If you ask any Falun Gong practitioners in the UK, they will tell you that. She can truly bear a lot of hardship. She often does the overnight shift. The next morning, she washes her face and just goes off to work.
Chun Bin is the husband of Gao Yudong, the coordinator for the vigil in front of the embassy. Before coming to the UK, he was an engineer in China's Ministry of Ordnance. Now in London, he owns a sign company.
Many people know that it's easy to bargain with him. They often say, I want to talk to your manager.
Our manager has a soft heart. There was a single mother who really struggled in her life. She borrowed money to start a business. As long as she laments tearfully, our manager will also be her electrician and help her install a light or something, free of charge.
My friends say, your company started from nothing. It's not well connected, and you also have no experience. But our client base is increasing. In fact, many clients are repeat customers.
Many of our Chinese clients are referred to us by others. When we become familiar with them, we tell them that we practice Falun Gong. Some people say, oh, no wonder you guys are so nice. Some people are like, oh, a little bit scared, but they know we are very nice. They might ask a few questions like, what about the self-immolation or something? I can simply explain to them the real story since we are outside of China. After watching the analysis of the self-immolation footage, they immediately understand the truth.
These are goods to be shipped each day. Some clients need to buy light boxes.
When Chen Bin was in college, he became interested in Qigong and tried many different styles. In 1997, he read Zhuan Falun at his in-laws' home and felt that his questions about life and the universe had been explained. He started practicing Falun Gong. Before long, his wife, Yu Dong, practiced with him. Her chronic condition, a slipped vertebra, healed quickly. Since coming to the UK, they have both developed their careers, but they use all of their spare time to appeal for an end to the persecution of Falun Gong.
If I have time to cook, I will prepare a little extra and put it in the refrigerator. Then we can just heat it up to eat. This noodle dish is easy to store. We just heat it in the microwave. It's enough for a few days. Take a look at this photo. Yang Yang's grandpa really loves him, but he's a serious man. Yang Yang would always say, "Grandpa, I want to kiss you." Grandpa said, "Don't do that. No, no. But I have to kiss you." Boom! With cake on his lips, Yang Yang kissed his grandpa's cheek. My dad was sentenced to 15 years in prison around October 17, 2001. I could only visit him behind a glass barrier and with someone monitoring us. Each time, Dad just asked me about my studies and my life. But seeing my dad gave me peace of mind. I went to the prison to see Dad. He had some artistic skills he wanted to teach me, some techniques to use colors. Actually, he wrote a little booklet for me, but it was confiscated by prison guards. Then they burned it. One time, it appeared that my dad had been beaten. I probably responded with a bad attitude toward the prison guard next to him. My dad saw that. Later, he wrote me a letter telling me not to have hate in my heart. Many people there were not themselves. He doesn't want me to think negatively about the world. Each time when Dad was taken back, he would always look back at me, clenching his fist like this. Then he would give me a very warm smile. His gaze was very bright. He meant to tell me that he's still very determined. These are my graduation projects. I got the inspiration from my dad, because in his name there's a character for sea. I used the shape of seashells as the principal element for the collection. This is the shell's shape, and inside this piece is also this kind of shell shape, because I feel my dad taught me a virtue. Actually, England had this virtue called chivalry. And in here is a fusion of the shell and the chivalric spirit. He always writes me letters, encouraging me to take this as a short separation. And through this process, he hopes I will become stronger. I remember when I was studying at college, I took all my dad's letters with me and kept them under the mattress. Then I would take them out to read. I don't really dare to read them too much. I felt they might disappear if I read too much. Only when I was really unhappy would I take them out to read. Then I would feel better.
Like an orphan, Amy lived alone. She's had to handle challenges on her own, including police harassment and criticism from relatives.
It's hard to care for someone long term. They don't practice Falun Gong, so they don't understand us. They think comparing to your freedom, job, and family, your relief is something you can give up. They cannot understand my parents, so...
Did you understand back then?
Yes, to some extent, but I couldn't fully understand.
In 2009, the prison started a new round of forced brainwashing. Amy's father's leg and ribs were fractured during beatings. His eye was injured while doing forced labor. The prison delayed his treatment, causing a permanent tear duct laceration. At that time, he had served only half his prison term.
In 2009, I kind of lost hope toward life. I always had a dream that if I grew up well-behaved and healthy, when they were released, we could reunite, and I could take care of them. But I was so scared that Dad wouldn't make it. He still had about 8 years remaining. Sometimes I woke up at midnight, thinking of his situation. Then I would just start crying. I had a roommate then who heard me. The next morning, she was quite annoyed and complained that I cried all night, and she went on about how I affected her sleep. I tried to explain to my classmates in college, but they didn't understand. Actually, I understand her, because China's media is controlled by the regime. A normal person who lives in any other country cannot believe that the news shown on CCTV every day is bogus and is intended to mislead you. When I was little, my parents told me to be a good person and to be kind to others. As I slowly grew older, sometimes I would be confused. How come the principles my parents taught me don't seem to work? It seems as though this society doesn't acknowledge hardworking people, but rather those smart people. Back then, my value system had a pretty big shock. At that time, I basically gave up my belief. I still kept truth, compassion, forbearance in my heart, but I was very confused. You think you do the right thing, but the feedback from the society would just hurt you.
My surname is Lu, and currently I'm an investment advisor in a petroleum company. Back then, I was studying in a university outside of London. One day, I went to the Chinese embassy to renew my passport. Oh, and I saw the Falun Gong booth. As we know, the UK is a very just country with the rule of law. So seeing a Falun Gong booth right across from the embassy, to me, just an ordinary Chinese, it seemed quite unusual. I was very shocked. There was a woman running the booth then. I thought, oh wow, good timing. I can use this opportunity to learn a little about Falun Gong.
The young guy just asked me, why does the Communist Party persecute Falun Gong? I explained that Falun Gong is based on truth, compassion, tolerance. The party is afraid that Falun Gong's principle would expose its ugliness. If people see it clearly, it would be unable to maintain control of its regime. I said, many Chinese students are exposed to the propaganda in China. They are really scared when they hear about Falun Gong. You are quite special.
On one occasion, a person I knew gave me a Falun Gong fact clarification DVD. I took a look at it and thought, wow, this is so interesting. How come there's such a thing as Falun Gong fact clarification? In that DVD, there was a Tiananmen self-immolation footage analysis. After going through the video and seeing the footage in slow motion, it was clear to me that the event had been orchestrated. It wasn't something that just happened to be caught on camera. It was planned. And so it was a shock for me. I was really astonished. As for Falun Gong, I was curious about it. I started to have a big question mark in my mind. So I decided to check it out myself. Later, I found the book Zhuanfalun on the internet. I discovered what Master Li teaches in Falun Gong books is all about becoming a good person, following the principles of truth, compassion, tolerance. It is very righteous. That's how I felt. I wanted to research it more in depth and to get a first-hand impression of the practice. So I found some Falun Gong volunteers. After interacting with them, I instantly became clear about this whole thing. The Falun Gong practitioners whom I saw and connected with were in fact really normal. They're actually very kind and pure. You can really see that. I realized immediately that Falun Gong has been maligned and persecuted by the Communist Party.
There are 2 night buses here, so there are buses 24 hours a day that go directly to the city center. I don't need to worry about transportation if I need to cover a visual shift at night.
How you make that list?
I'll show you now. And the peeler. It's the best peeler in town. It peels both ways. That means left-handed or right-handed people can use it.
In this store, I can often find some good stuff. This is only £1.50 per box. These beans are not bad. Yang Yang sometimes writes to his grandparents. His grandma always forwards them to Chenbing.
Let me see. Oh, this is Yang Yang's reply to his grandparents. He also sent us a copy. This is what his grandpa wrote. When I walked into your home that is bigger than your apartment in Beijing, I was so happy. This time, we spent 50 days together, which gave us a chance to learn more about your daily lives. You have a stable life that makes us feel at ease. But we are really worried about your lifestyle. We saw you work on a computer day and night without enough sleep. You filled your stomach by drinking milk tea. You worked so hard, but when you were thirsty at the airport, you didn't even want to spend money on bottled water. One should be rewarded for one's effort, but you work so hard without even getting paid. I can't understand that. 40 is a good age. With your knowledge and ability and a decent plan, you could have a much better life. Even though you may not earn as much as Luo Yuan or Mike, at least you could have a much better life. But seems you're not interested in this. Anyway, I hope you can arrange your lives better. The above are our thoughts after our London trip, just for your reference. This is Yang Yang's reply letter. I always believe that hardship can temper one's character, enrich his experiences, and improve his morality. This is similar to the principles of cultivation. Of course, we are not seeking out suffering, but amidst life's difficulties when other people mistreat me, even while being persecuted, I can't give up. I have to walk my path with determination. Thinking back, if I had not grown up this way, I may have become spoiled and lazy, unable to accomplish anything. Had I been too comfortable, I may have gradually abandoned my belief and become lost in material indulgence. My time was not spent playing video games, but on composing music. Without pursuing a luxurious lifestyle, I had time to read and enrich myself. I gradually started to understand why my parents were so busy. My parents were busy because the persecution has been going on and it still continues. Many people don't know that. Human life is so precious. That's why my mom and dad may work day and night. You said that effort ought to be rewarded. This is certainly true. So many years have passed, whether it was Dad's newspaper project or our family's situation, or the way my parents raised me. We may not see the rewards immediately. Instead, they will be revealed many years later. Dad and Mom's efforts were not in vain. Confucius taught justice and destiny. We should do righteous things no matter if we can succeed or not. We do what we can wholeheartedly to be worthy of our consciences. Regardless of the outcome, we have all succeeded, because, in terms of morality and conscience, we will always be in an invincible position.
Pandemonium ensued as plainclothed police tried to round the protesters up, often punching and kicking them in the process. But just as one group of protesters was quelled, another group would appear.
Whatever happened to Falun Gong 10 years after China banned the spiritual movement?
Ever since July 1999, when the persecution of Falun Gong first started, practitioners' efforts to let people know the truth have never halted.
The Chinese authorities had initiated.
Since the clampdown, there's been a daily vigil outside the Chinese embassy in London. Beijing hopes Falun Gong's influence is ebbing away, but outside, its supporters are more determined than ever to keep their faith alive. Emily Buchanan, BBC News.
At tourist attractions around the world, people see them. On stages, in galleries, through classical arts, they express their thoughts and feelings, as well as the suffering they have endured. For them, these efforts are not only to expose the persecution, but also to express the principles they believe in: truth, compassion, tolerance. For Amy Yu, who has suffered bitterly from a young age, these efforts have allowed her to understand what all of her parents' sacrifices were ultimately for.
The Truth, Compassion, Tolerance art exhibition came to Cambridge. I had already graduated at the time and was waiting for my visa. I went to the exhibition and found it completely overwhelming. The vivid depiction of cruelty is intended to expose such brutality. This righteous person is surrounded by darkness. For him, it was truly a life and death choice, but he still chose to hold fast to his principles. The piece that resonated most with me was Homeless, the painting with the little girl. I knew many little kids from families of Falun Dafa practitioners. They had no home to return to. She had tears on her face. She looked so lost and so innocent. Her life has already been tremendously altered. There were also paintings exposing torture methods. At the time, I didn't dare to look. But when I did catch a glimpse, I thought, oh no, did my parents suffer like this in prison? I just didn't dare to look or think. I also went to see Shen Yun. It was the 2012 Shen Yun performance. I was absolutely amazed. As the curtains opened and the big drum started, my tears just fell. The performers were just so awesome. But what touched me most was the lyrics of a song. It said, "Happiness is what people long for, yet misfortune is their constant companion. No matter how tough you may be, fate always makes light of you. Do not complain, hold fast to your goodness. May my song help you undo the delusion that blinds you." The phrase, "hold fast to your goodness," I just felt it completely touch my inner heart. There was something I had lost for so long, or rather something I wanted to make certain, but I could not figure out what it exactly was. In that moment, I realized, oh, this is it.
Once we ate a shrimp meal together, she said that no matter how difficult her youth was, I guess it was after her parents were arrested on her birthday. If she had shrimp, she would be really happy. Yeah, she rarely shared her thoughts with others. Sometimes when she was really upset, she would come to my place. At night, she would just fall asleep next to me. In the morning, she would cook congee and eggs within 10 minutes. She would even quickly make some soy milk. She's pretty good at taking care of herself. I guess her mom would be happy if she knew it.
Tian, it smells so good. Have a taste. Can I eat it?
Of course.
If you leave the shrimp overnight, it's even tastier.
Really?
Because the flavor will infuse into them.
I wanted to make a bigger one, but it would be hard for it to carry. The wind might blow it away.
This is a horizontal layout, right? How wide is it?
It's designed to be 1.1 meters.
1.1 meters, like this?
Yeah, 1.1 meters by 40. I can't stand seeing your dad like that.
You can see. Don't be silly.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Do you have any other photos of your dad?
Only this one. I sneaked it in prison. I was worried when we started the rescue. I didn't want my actions to cause them any more harm. Nobody wants to see that happen. Later, I asked a few people, and they shared with me their experiences. I felt relieved. Exposing the hidden abuses would only do good. I wrote letters to media, to MPs, to MEPs, and to the embassy. There is a practitioner in Germany who was also rescuing her mom. She made a postcard and asked people around the world to send it to the prison. I thought it was a great idea. Would you please make this fence less dark?
Okay, sure.
When I first joined the visual, by the end of each shift, I feel so tired and cold. I would look at the embassy across the street and think, You launched this persecution and caused so many families to be broken apart. You took all their happiness away. You don't let us practice in China, right? Now, I'm practicing right in front of you. Don't you want to cover this up? I'm right here exposing it. Back then, I was just so tired. Each time when I had that mindset, it made things worse. I felt so burdened. Tears would start falling, but I didn't dare to cry because people would think I was weird. My attitude improved a little later. Actually, it's really sad because they are deceived and used without knowing right from wrong. They will have to pay for their bad deeds later. I felt they're just so pitiable. My attitude gradually changed. Then I was peaceful and no longer felt the cold as much.
In this free environment, Amy's wounded heart gradually healed. From her own experiences and those around her, she came to understand that she can live her life according to the principles her parents taught her: truth, compassion, tolerance. Slowly, her courage and smile returned.
Compassion is a characteristic that is embodied naturally, and is a way of life. It won't be tainted because of the environment. It will not change. It's not like that. I started to understand Zhuanfalun and what they were doing.
See the lights hanging there? These are Westminster's decorations during the Christmas season. But even during the holiday, our vigil won't stop. Now it's already 9:30 p.m. Even at 10 or 11 p.m., it will still be so congested. Regardless of whether you take the bus or drive yourself, you will experience heavy traffic. So sometimes I will set the GPS to avoid the traffic. On Fridays, you feel like you need a good rest after work, right? But you have to leave for the vigil at 10 p.m. and expose yourself to the elements. Especially in the winter, you shiver when you open the door. But in China, the practitioners are suffering persecution in prison. Compared with that, this is really nothing. And if you don't come, someone else has to cover the shift, like Ms. Gao. Many people say that she's very strong and can handle a lot. But she's a person after all. And she's a woman. She's a mother and also a wife, right? When I think of this, I feel I should still continue and be resolute in this project.
Basically, I come here to clarify the truth about the persecution. Every Saturday, we've got a 24-hour vigil here that's been going on for 14 years outside the Chinese embassy. Sometimes you get people like Chinese where they walk past and they'll swear, things like that, but it doesn't really affect me because, you know, we're there. There's all different types of people there, and there are Chinese people that come through that are interested, and maybe the ones that swear, maybe later on, sometimes they come back, and you know they might take a newspaper or they might take a leaflet or they might talk to us a little bit, and we could have discussions with them. So I don't really get offended by that.
I cannot understand how people can not be moved by hearing about, for instance, people being killed for their organs and people being tortured to death. It's a persecution of basic human decency, truthfulness, compassion and tolerance. If those qualities, in the human character are being persecuted, that means that affects everyone. That's the way I see it,
Who brought this along?
We'd better decorate a bit, so I bought it today.
Wow, very pretty. I've done the night shift for over 10 years. Sometimes I've come across some troubles. Like one time, I was here meditating, and a drunk person stood behind me. He just stood next to me, swaying. The night bus passed by me, because this is a bus route. The bus just stopped here. The driver opened the door and said, "Leave that lady alone. Don't disturb her." Then the drunk person started going berserk, but he didn't dare to touch me. The driver just stayed here watching him until that person left. Because we showed exercises here, if I use a blanket, people won't see the movements clearly. That's no good. So in winter, when it's fairly cold, I don't cover myself up with a blanket. I want to show people the double loader's posture. People really admire that.
The persecution of Falun Gong is so severe that it's beyond most people's imagination. It's very hard for Chinese to give up their notions and truly understand Falun Gong. Actually, many Chinese people place emphasis on conscience and morality. If most Chinese people truly understand the severity of this issue, maybe a lot of them would speak out.
My dad told me, looking out from behind bars, some see stars, some see swamps. More than a decade in prison for anyone will cause tremendous harm, both mentally and physically. I expected they would need my help a lot to return to society. But after they were released, I was really amazed. Really amazed. Both of them were in good spirits. Actually in really good spirits. For them, the suffering not only didn't become something that scarred them perpetually, instead, it made them more optimistic and positive. I think this is because the cultivation has nurtured their spirits. They are becoming pure and pure.
Some families go to the opera together. Some go to see musicals or watch sports together. But our family comes here to tell the world what's going on in China. I feel it's a very honorable thing. And I'm glad that our kids suggested we come.
Because I sort of thought of the idea, I sort of feel personally responsible to keep the idea.
It's funny because we normally do it on Sunday, but Christmas is on Sunday and my birthday is on Sunday.
Are you not happy with that?
No. I'm just saying, hello Ashley! I didn't know you were coming. Do you have a slot here?
Hey, you didn't schedule a shift?
Sometimes we come on Saturdays, but not always.
Oh, for the kids' classes.
Yeah.
During this process, the kids have learned perseverance and also commitment. Last week when we came, it was cold, so we went to the cafe in Riba. The kids wanted me to buy hot chocolate. The barista said, "Wait, I know you are Falun Gong, I'm not charging you." I was so touched, truly very touched.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year!
Have a good Christmas. Bye. And a Happy New Year. Most of the shops are going to be closed, so I just been to the Sainsbury's and bought enough food for today and tomorrow. So public transport will stop from today, and the whole of Christmas Day there's no buses, no trains. I find it easier to just stay in a B&B within walking distance of the Villa. I normally put things by the window, that's closer to keeps it cool. It's a nice little hotel. It's very quiet. So during the Christmas, some years there's more people that can make it, and some years not so many. So this year I would do 2 shifts, one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
The 3 of us, although we're so far apart, our hearts are together. If you can always keep, no matter how complicated the environment is, you keep a good heart, you will always be happy. As for my family, we face a lot of difficulties, but we are very happy. When you just fill your heart with truth, compassion, tolerance, you will just feel immersed in bright light. When you meet others, you also want to convey this positive, warm energy to them. When you are determined to be good and live up to your conscience, you will walk your path with dignity and brightness.
One day on stage, I felt like outside the Chinese embassy again. And then I hear the sound of buses and taxis going past in front of me. And then just everything, the sights and sound of London, and then the weather, you know, like the wind in the trees, I could hear all of that. But then on stage, the sound of the buses disappeared. It turned into the music from the orchestra pit. And then the lights on stage from the side. And then it wasn't the people walking past. It wasn't just a few pedestrians walking past. It was a full house full of audience members there ready to listen to what we have to say through our performance. And for me, that was a very special experience because it just keeps reminding me what we're doing here, you know. Suddenly I felt like I wasn't dancing for myself anymore. I was dancing for others on stage. I was dancing for the millions of practitioners around the world. I was dancing for all the other practitioners who were staying at the Chinese embassy that was still going on. All of this was for persecuted practitioners in China who are suffering for the same belief that we have, who are being persecuted for doing the same movements that we are doing right now.